fixing the audio.
That's funny.
So, yeah.
I tried to slow down. I can't stop talking. Sorry. You've all got a bingo board. We're going to be filling these out along with what's going on here. Some of them that you'll see as descriptions, like laughs at own joke or takes a non-wine drink, like if I go for my Hefeweizen over here, then you can check off that square. If it's something in quotations, then if we say that, then you can check off the square. And we'll oftentimes remind you, outtake style that we just kind of did that square, but you'll get to fill these in. And the ones that list the wine, if it says V3 Orangose, when we drink the V3 Orangose, you can mark that one off. So that once somebody has, a full row one way or another, we're going to call that bingo and then give out prizes from there. Because we don't want everybody to have to be experts to win this game. No need to be like a wine expert or a bingologist. So,
bingologist, I like that. So you guys also missed the first part there. So that's the breakdown of how to play the Wino Bingo tonight. The other half that I mentioned while I was muted there, computer setting, man, these fancy computers. The other half of it was I was thanking you guys for supporting us. We are a tiny little winery here in Sacramento, California, and it's started as just my side project and then continued on into being me being able to quit my day job because this small experimental organic wine I was making was just blowing up, and it continuing to survive and thrive throughout COVID has been pretty much entirely because of everyone of you guys supporting us by buying these kits and doing these virtual tastings and and all that good stuff. So thank you guys for supporting us.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about you.
So we're going to be tasting a really cool lineup of wines here. We have 5 different voluptuary and lucid wines, starting with our L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay, rolling into our V2 Tethered Sky Picpoul Blanc, and then a really small-scale experimental wine, our Orangose. It's a blend of orange and rosé. And then our V6 Drinking Tree Pinot Noir, and finishing off with our only heavy red wine of the night, the L6 Epiphany Petite Syrah.
And I have to say, from my perspective, this is one of the coolest lineups as far as like what you're getting here. Like, it's not a list of my favorites, but there's a lot of special wines in here. There's not only the Orangose, which is not released for, sale. It's just an experimental wine that he made that I think is really awesome. But there's also the V2 Tethered Sky, which is basically sold out. We thought we were until we found 3 cases buried in the back, and those are going fast. And then we've also got the Drinking Tree Pinot Noir, which is the most expensive wine on the list.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a highlight of some of the best things in your lineup.
Yeah, and that V6 just got pretty much, the rest of this vintage and almost the entirety of the next vintage got bought out in one fell swoop by a website that does kind of collector's items, wines, and packages them up. So I got a really good... Yeah, they bought out the vintages, so that you guys are tasting some last opportunity to taste that Pinot Noir before it's sold out for a couple vintages now.
Yeah, and we haven't announced any of the 3 of those being on the extinction list either, so you guys are probably going to be the last people who will be able to buy some of those loose bottles before they disappear.
It's kind of cool because of all the support in these tasting kits and so on. I'm on the verge of selling out all but about 4 of our wines from what I've been making so far, and the next vintage is still a couple months away, so we'll be briefly sold out of like everything except for a few wines. So yeah, anyway, thank you guys again. Without further ado, let's roll right into some wine. Cool, everything looks good. Let's go ahead and pour ourselves some of that L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay blend. So here's the bottle right there.
We should probably leave that out in front while we're tasting it.
Yeah. So the L1 Skin Contact Chardonnay is a Chardonnay-based blend with a little Malvasia Bianca. This wine, for me, I get all sorts of, Chardonnay-esque aromatics, everything from the lighter, more crisp citrus characteristics, but also the peach, pear, apple, orchard fruits. And then you also get, from the Malvasia Bianca, a little bit more of the tropical fruit and floral notes. It's related to muscat, so you get some of that fruit aromatic.
I like that it doesn't have that, heavy, buttery, oaky type of thing that a lot of Chardonnays have. Though I prefer this with the white, even if it is more of a white in a red style. It's still fruity and light and not heavy like that.
Yeah, because I think you get a lot of Chardonnays tend to err towards heavy oak use, and the oak gives these flavors like vanilla and toastiness, which can be nice, but when they're over the top, especially a lot of Chardonnays are also buttery.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have that oaky, buttery toastiness, it's like burnt movie popcorn or something. It's over the top. And so I don't really like that kind of Chardonnay. I wanted a Chardonnay with more fruit influence and style. So seeing people's cool. A lot of people are just pulling up their email and the bingo cards and so on. So cool. So yeah, this is a really nice wine. It's called Skin Contact because we fermented this on the skins. Most white wines are fermented just the juice. It's common technique that if you're doing a white fermentation, you either ferment it in the barrel or in a stainless steel tank. And it's just the juice, because traditionally whites and rosés, the juice is kind of the juicy, fruit-forward, simple part of the wine. And those kind of wines were viewed as being something you wanted to keep very simple. But with this ancient technique called skin contact, this technique was used in the country of Georgia in ancient times. They would take clay pots and put the white grapes inside of the clay pots and bury it with the skins and the juice and seeds and stems and everything underground for months, and then unbury it later. This was discovered at some point a while back by an alcohol archaeologist, actually. Really cool guy.
An alcohologist?
Alcohologist, more or less. I think that's the technical term. And so he's figured out a bunch of really old school ways to make wine and make beer, actually. A lot of, if you guys are fans of Dogfish Head, a lot of their beers that are really experimental and weird are based off of stuff this same archaeologist discovered. But one of the things he discovered that was purely wine related was this orange wine technique. And in retrospect, it makes sense. It's just a way to ferment white grapes. Why wouldn't we do that? But no one was doing it anymore. It was like a lost technique.
Wine industry is like the epitome of the just to do it the way we've always done it. Motto. And so I know a lot of you had to look up your bingo cards later. Normally we send stuff out with it because I had to keep track of all of the boards. I sent it out via email this time. So I'm just going to do a quick recall at this point. So far, Kevin said a French word. I laughed at my own joke. We had some of the L1 Skin Contact. I took a drink of something that is not wine. Kevin did a pretty deep take on Skin Contact there, while wearing a kind of hipster hat, in my opinion. So you got a few you can check off the board there if you're just catching up. And then I'm not going to call everything out for you going forward. That's part of the game. But, we'll try to make it real obvious.
Yeah. Oh, nice. And so a couple of you guys are mentioning you don't see the bingo boards. In case you want to look for it in your email, it would have come from Jerome Luther at yahoo.com, not from Voluptuary Wine, because he was the one individually emailing it out. So
Jerome at voluptuary.com.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did it from my company email.
So in case you weren't looking for that, or your email may have sent it to junk mail because it was a direct email to you, not from our website.
They all came through today at noon, basically. Give or take a few minutes. I just rapid fire sent all my...
Awesome. So yeah, go ahead and check your email and junk mail perhaps if that filtered out. So okay, that's this first wine in terms of its basic flavor profile. This is the 2018 vintage, and it is all organically grown from Terra Alta Vineyard, Bokish Vineyards. Their Terra Alta Vineyard in Lodi and the Cecchini family vineyard in Contra Costa County. Both, like I say, organically grown, and it's about 80% Chardonnay, in case you were wondering the percentages, and 20% Malvasia Bianca. Another little quirky thing about this wine is that it is aged on oak barrels after the fermentation, as well as a little bit of lemon wood, which gives it just a little bit of grippiness and a little bit of lemony flavor that I think does come through on this wine.
Yeah, I agree. It helps accentuate those light orchard notes you were talking about.
Yeah.
Your apple, pear, peach. Like your more like crisp summer orchard fruits.
Yeah, and I think it also helps enhance the perception of the acidity and lemon character to make it pair really nicely with seafood and oysters and stuff like that. In our food pairing special, or actually the barbecue special, I think Jerome did some oysters with this wine.
Yeah, correct.
So on that note, this wine is a wine that I think, because it can be very crisp and refreshing, can be chilled and drink cold, but also because it is pretty aromatic and complex, you can drink this warm as well. During summer, I tend to like it more chilled, but in winter, I do like drinking this fairly, room temperature to get more of those aromatics.
And that really does kind of change the profile, and by the nature of that, sort of the pairings. When it's nice and chilled, it's so crisp and refreshing that it's, that's when it's a good seafood pairing. Then it was with something, your nice citrus, things that are real.
Mm-hmm.
They have that acidity, that salinity from the sea.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do it more at room temperature, it's more of like a cheese pairing, or like creamy. Like you could still do it with oysters, but I might do it with like a barbecued oyster when it's warm, and like a chilled one when it's chilled.
I never thought about it that way, but that makes sense. I agree with that.
Like
So,
I wouldn't
yeah.
have it chilled with cheese,
No,
and I wouldn't
no.
have it warm with like fish and lemon.
I think having it warmer does bring out that creaminess and almost like, the cheese matching. So with that reasoning, my music pairing for this is actually a song by the Polish Ambassador called Chill or Be Chilled. It's a really fun, laid back song, and just the name happens to be a great pun.
Who would have guessed that the Polish Ambassador was also a rapper?
Yeah, all right. Go figure. So the literary pairing for this that I have is from The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. And the quote is, "We are travelers on a cosmic journey, stardust, swirling and dancing in the eddies and whirlpools of infinity. Life is eternal. We have stopped for a moment to encounter each other, to meet, to love, to share. This is a precious moment. It is a little parenthesis in eternity." That was a really epic quote to stutter on at the end. But just like, I think this is a good wine for sort of living in the moment and capturing the moment. And I think that quote captures some of that, like the magic of the moment.
I like it.
All right. That's that first wine. And all of the Lucid wines have art on them by Micah Crandallbear. He's a Sacramento-based artist, and he just does amazing stuff.
I don't know if you guys caught that, but he referenced both the vineyards and the artist going along with this wine. So,
What does that have to do with?
So what are we moving on next? The
Yeah,
Tethered Sky,
So, yes, the...
favorite wine of Candace Lollygagger.
Ooh,
Don't know if she's watching today.
we've already got a couple of bingos.
Really?
Yeah, let's see. We've got Christy Golubuski and Hillary Plesner Windish. All right, after I stuttered, and then people get bingo, have names I can't pronounce very easily. But yeah, all right,
Well,
we've got a couple of bingos. Sweet.
That's pretty awesome. We might have to extend out, the third prize and, give a few people that. I wasn't expecting. I wanted it to make it a little easier than he's like, oh, he's giving out more prizes. But, it might make up for the fact that last time, it was like an impossible test. Sometimes you have like the
on the trivia
teacher that makes you work for it. And then sometimes, you're playing bingo with a stoner. So,
Yeah, when we did the trivia night, I made questions that I thought were like moderately difficult as a wine person, and I realized that they're like moderately difficult for like high level winemakers and sommeliers, and it was basically impossible for anyone else. So today is definitely a little bit more user friendly. Congratulations on the bingo, folks, and thank you, Tara, also for your comment that you love the Alchemist, and Margaret for complimenting us on our shirts. Yeah. All right, cool. So this next wine is the V2.
I accidentally bought a knockoff. There's a quote mark there instead of the.
That's pretty funny. Got that from.
It was on the march. I don't know.
Okay, I was gonna say, was that from like the flea market or? So yeah, this next wine is the V2 Tethered Sky Picpoul Blanc.
It's got a lot of the same characteristics, I think, as well, if they all won. A lot of those same, like, crisp citrus, like nice seaside summer day type of wine. It's
Mhm.
definitely got some differences as well, but I view them as fairly similar.
Yeah, I think that this wine for me, while it has a lot of the same kind of citrus characteristics, it has for me less of the like tropical and floral notes, and it goes a little bit more of a savory direction in terms of more of that sea spray and oyster shell, not just being something I would pair with oysters, but something that literally has a smell and a flavor that's like saline, like seawater almost. Really subtly, but it's there for me.
Yeah, no, I do taste that. I wasn't thinking that on my first taste, but now I
Yeah.
am that I'm looking for it.
It's a quirky wine, and one of the reasons it developed that savory characteristic is because of the extended aging on the yeast lees in the barrels. So normally white wine is only aged for a few months before release, again to emphasize the bright fruit, simple flavors that most white wines are known for. But if you leave it in an older barrel for a really long time, like 18 months in this case, you develop a different kind of flavor, something somewhat sherry like and something somewhat vermouth like that gives you some more savoriness.
What for those of us? Because like that's one of those things when somebody's like, "Oh, it tastes like elderberries," and like what? Like I
Yeah.
have no idea what that means. What do vermouth and sherry mean
Oh, yeah.
as
So,
far
okay.
as my wine taste
So
goes? I don't
sherry,
know that.
so sherry is like usually an oxidized style white wine where they intend to leave the barrel partially full, and that oxygen contact gives the wine a flavor that it's sometimes hard to put your finger on, which is why it's easier to just say sherry like when I'm describing this wine, but to describe wine by that wine, I would say another way to describe it is like if you have an apple, there's a fresh apple, and then there's that oxidized apple afterwards.
Mhm.
A little bit of like oxidized fruit smell. It also gives like some savory characteristics. So those are some of the reference points. So you get a little bit of that in this, but then the vermouth is just the sort of savory, almost herbaceous flavor that you get from steeping in different botanicals. And I think you get a little bit of that influence as well. But another thing is a lot of that comes from the yeast lees aging. So the yeast settle out to the bottom of the barrel after the fermentation, and I was stirring it back up into the wine to extract that yeast flavor. So you
Mhm.
get this like bread-like, yeast lees-like flavor in the wine
Right.
from that.
Good description. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and this is organically grown Picpoul Blanc from Bocage Vineyards, aged on the oak as well as a little bit of lemon wood. I only made one barrel of this, as we were saying earlier, very small production. It's technically sold out, but we did find a few extra bottles and decided to put it in this kit. If you did want to buy some, I think I literally see 3 bottles on the shelf, and that's it. So I don't know if we have a couple more in the back, but if you like it, you can order it. But just so you know, it's basically gone. So I hope you enjoyed that. This has been one of my favorites, and
And to tie into that, while a majority of the wines are being made again in this second vintage, and there's always variation. That's part of the beauty of wine. But there'll be similar, where one Pinot Noir is going out and another one coming in. One, Tannat is going out, another one is coming in. These 3 Picpoul Blancs, they're not being remade in the new vintage. Other whites are coming out, like a Chenin Blanc, and I don't even remember the others. But at least for this next vintage, this will not be available. So if it's something you like, buy up the last few and
yeah.
enjoy.
Yeah, I try. One of the things that most big brands, they produce the same wine repeatedly, and their goal is total consistency of wine year to year. And well, I have a little bit of that in the Lucid brand, like the L1, the L2, and the L8 are going to be fairly consistent year to year because those are just sort of our core. We're going to have those in some local stores and a lot of restaurants and stuff. So I want some consistency there. The other 15 wines or so I make a year are going to switch up year to year. I might get some things similar, but I'll do totally different experiments. And then I'll get totally different grapes that I just think are really interesting, cool, quirky grape varieties, or I want to explore some technique that I want to do. So there's not going to, if you like a wine, buy it because it's not necessarily something I'm trying to create consistency. It's like I want to create something delicious, let it exist for a while, and then go create something else fun and new.
You're going to make the best wine you can each year rather than just appealing to the lowest common denominator of sales.
Yeah.
So that makes
Yeah.
sense to me.
And with this, my pairings other than food are my life pairing is reading a book by a rocky seashore. It just captures it's like you could read some Ernest Hemingway or some John Steinbeck down by Monterey.
Yeah,
Peninsula.
grab some oysters on the way, head down to the beach, read a book in the wind, and
I think that would
enjoy some of this.
do quite well for this wine. So on that note, on
Flying kites in the park would also be a good life
Mm.
pairing for this one.
I'm not very good at flying kites. I can never get them to really fly. Anyway, the quote for this is from the naturalist and writer Terry Tempest Williams, and the quote is, "To be whole, to be complete. Wildness reminds us what it means to be human, what we are connected to rather than what we are separate from."
I like that.
Yeah, and I think, especially right now when we feel very like separated and split, and life is kind of stressful right now, and we're both isolated and kind of feel out of our own skin sometimes these days. Connecting with nature is like so critically important. Whether you're going out hiking or camping, or whether you're just getting onto the bike trail, or whether you're getting into your garden or hiking like some park or trail near your house. I mean, whatever it is, get out in nature, breathe, sit with silence and quietness of nature, get your toes in the sand or the dirt. Really helps you feel connected to like what we are all a part of on this existence and on this earth. And
what isn't that sorry, I was stuck in like a thought there. There's a quote, something I'm paraphrasing it. Society shows me who I am. Solitude shows me who I should be. Like sometimes going out in nature helps you like center and be more, attuned with yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, right, exactly. You get out of these loops of other things that life pulls you into, and you remember what you are at your core. I think nature's huge for me for that, personally. And then my music pairing for this is "When the Ship Comes In" by Bob Dylan. Kind of a seafaring song with a lot of energy, and seems to fit into all those themes we were talking about on that last wine. All right, now we're on the third wine. This, if you got the full bottle set,
I had that out so that you could see the label. We're drinking the unlabeled, ones because we don't want to rob you guys of the last few.
So if you got the full bottle, it would look like this. It looks like it is the V3, the Lover Picpoul Blanc. That's what it got bottled in. But it is actually a blend of that wine with our L2 Urban Flora Rosé. So it was a happy accident. We were in the middle of filtration and bottling when I was bottling my first vintage of wines. And when you're doing filtration and bottling, there's a point at which you've pushed one wine through all your pumps and hoses and bottling line, and you've bottled it. And you've bottled it all, but there's still some sitting in the lines. And when you push the next wine into the filtration and bottling line, it blends a little bit with that last wine. Not in any way that's a big deal. It's usually like, oh, whatever. Especially if you're going from one red to another, or similar wines.
It's the same as like you didn't really quite finish your glass, and then somebody fills you up with the next one in the lineup, and suddenly you're like got this mixed blend of the two.
Exactly. So it accidentally happened on a much larger scale than I intended. Normally you're aware of it and you just kind of either push it through and throw that away, or mix it into another wine or something that needs it. But in this case, it all got mixed together and was a pretty drastically different wine. And it got bottled before I was aware of that. And so at some point I was able to look back and go, oh, I have like 40 bottles of this really crazy wine that at first I just wasn't sure what to make of it because it was just so unintentional. And over time, it's come to become one of our favorite wines.
I really like it. I was not expecting that. I don't normally even like most whites and most rosés or amber orange wines. And I do like Kevin's, but I'm very much a red wine guy. But this really does just grow on me. It's got that and it's almost got that like hard liquor look to it, where it's got like almost a metallic orange going on, and it really does have that same sort of notes in the taste, where it's just got an extra impact, I feel, than either of those on their own.
Yeah, so I think aromatically you get part of each of their influence. You get some of the V3, the Lover had a lot of these peach and pear, nectarine, apricot kind of flavors, but also this sort of caramely vanilla note. And then the L2 Urban Flora had a lot of pink fruit, red fruit, like watermelon, strawberry, cherry, berry. And so I think this wine has a mix of those. And then you even get some of these citrusy, like orange and tangerine notes going on. I don't know if it's just because it kind of looks like that, or like blood orange or something. But I swear you get
dried peach and apricot. I get like a lot.
Yeah, so it's aromatically trippy and really complex. And then because the base of it was the V through the Lover skin contact, it has that skin contact effect, which in most white wines, again, as I said, it's just the juice fermented. When you ferment on the skins, especially a lot of skins, and the V through the Lover had 200% skin contact actually, you get a really dry, astringent, almost bitter flavor.
You get tannins, even though it's a white and rosé base.
Exactly. It's a Orangose with the weight and body more like a heavy red wine. So you really have to approach it differently. It might smell sweet and fruity,
but it's more of a sipper.
Yeah, this is like, a wine for, I don't know, whiskey drinkers or something, or dark red wine drinkers, because it does have that weight and length of finish. By the way, we've got a couple more bingos. Congratulations, Connie.
Boom.
Sandrita. And the other ones are just cool notes. David Nash really likes the savory notes on the V2. And people are digging, Tara's digging that we made only one barrel of a lot of these wines, actually. But the V2, I think she was referring to there. And this wine only about 40 bottles of. So, Tara also smells the apricot.
She knows what she's doing.
Tara's an awesome customer. She's been with us from really the beginning, one of our longest term customers and huge supporter. She's even given us some grapes. I have a barrel in the back here that I'm making from her Zinfandel and Merlot. It's a single barrel, and we're going to donate a large portion of proceeds from that to the American River Conservancy. And she just donated those out of nowhere. Just she loved what we were doing with nonprofits. We donated $1 from every bottle of nonprofits, and she was all about our brand and the organic stuff. She ran her vineyard organically and just gave me grapes so we could do a collaboration. So really cool lady.
Oh, I was just going to say, I thought after all those early bingos, we were going to try to slow it down, but then you're just throwing out charities left and right now as well. And yeah, he didn't really know what I put on the board. It was kind of like me basing this whole thing off stuff he does anyway. So,
reference to vineyards, reference to charity. I see them now. Yeah, there's probably a few more bingos that are going to come through. We love you too, Tara. All right. So you don't get to mark off laps at your own joke again. I know I did it again, but that's only one square. Yeah. Okay, this wine, 100% organically grown. This is still that same pick pool as the last one. So that was 100% organically grown from Bokish Vineyards in Lodi. The rosé that went into this actually wasn't organically grown. It was just sustainably grown in the Sierra foothills. And the art for this label, which really goes with The Lover, is The Lover by Robert and Shauna Park Harrison. Amazing artists off the East Coast. They do all of our voluptuary labels. In fact, our voluptuary labels are their art. Like, they didn't do them for us. This is their original art. They have an amazing and massive portfolio of fine art photography. Check them out, and they're really inspiring folks.
Yeah, I was going to go in and draw O's on there so that everybody could tell them apart, but it's cool art by cool artists. I didn't want to go in there and graffiti it or whatever. Actually, I guess that's punishable by heavy fines now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. My literary quote for this is from Khalil Gibran, The Prophet. I'm getting deep today. And the quote is, I think, pretty relevant to, everything going on right now and life right now. It says, Khalil Gibran says, "You have been told that, even like a chain, you are as weak as your weakest link. This is but half the truth. You are also as strong as your strongest link. To measure you by your smallest deed is to reckon the power of the ocean by the frailty of its foam. To judge you by your failures is to cast blame upon the seasons for their inconstancy." And I think right now a lot of people are, at home and in their own minds and in their own heads, and a lot of people are just struggling, critical and self-critical, and it's really nice to remember that within yourself, remember your strongest deeds and the coolest things you've done, and as a society to keep together.
I put it in a different glass. You have to have specific glasses for different types of wines. For an Orangose, you use a small mason jar. When you're drinking a red, you want to drink it out of some ornate piece of glasswork like your grandma would have in a hutch.
Yeah.
So it's one of those wine snob things.
True. So with our, where we're standing right now, this is in our tasting room, right? This is in our winery actually, where I make the wine here, I age it here, and we're, we've basically just existed as a virtual winery, doing these virtual tastings with the kits that we mail out, and people are joining us online like this. We are now just slowly starting to do a little bit of in-house tasting at the warehouse, just reservation only. People can come in small groups, lots of social distancing, and taste our wines here at the warehouse. So if you guys are interested in coming and checking out, and in small groups and totally reserved and safe and everything, you can come check that out. And when you do, you get to
message or email, because we do have a couple of setups, so we can have more than one group at one time. But if people have appointments, if we're all full, we can't just bring more people in. So if you stop by, you run the risk of not being able to do it. If you check ahead, then we'll make sure we have a spot for you. Your group will be able to come right up, have fun and enjoy.
Exactly. And when you come, you get to choose your glass. We have all these different cool glasses that we've collected, and we've got our shelf here. You can select through whatever you think is your favorite style of weird, quirky glass. You can have the china cabinets, like cool embroidered glasses. You can have the floral glass,
or your standard like winemaker glasses too. We do have those if you want them. But
the standard winemaking glass, meaning my mason jar.
Yeah, that's what I was referencing.
So yeah, all right. Now we have the fourth wine is the V6 Drinking Tree Pinot Noir.
That's what I poured for you in here.
And all right, we've got a couple more bingos. We've got Sam Renier and David Nash. Oh, David Nash on Mandy's behalf. So Mandy also got bingo now. And we had a question. What was the alcohol content on the Orangose? I'm not entirely sure, since it is a weird mix. But the orange wine was 10.8 and the rosé is like 11.8. So I guess it would be like 11.3.
If we're going to sell some, we need to have a percentage. So we'll call it 11.3.
11.3 it is. Deal. Done. Yes, this next wine, the V6 Drinking Tree Pinot Noir, is...
That's how decisions are made in two-person corporations.
It's nice. Even decisions by committee are fairly straightforward, especially when you've been drinking.
I can see why this one is the $68 bottle. And it's funny, they have those tests where people they have really, a $300 wine and a $3 wine, and they have people blind test them, whether it's people on the street or sommeliers and chefs, and people have a really hard time with it. You find out a lot of it is, BS. It's labeling and things along those lines. But within your line, you really can see that. I mean, you do have some standouts. Some of your best wines are the $18 wines, like the Wanderlust and the Rosé. But this one in particular, you can taste the handcraftedness. It just, there's a reason why it's, at the top of the chart as far as, what you're charging for this.
And this is another single barrel production. It is organically grown Pinot Noir from Santa Cruz Mountains, AVA, and a super small vineyard, Len Lehman, grows this. And one of the reasons I charge a lot for this is when I bought these grapes, I only bought not quite 2 bins, picking bins, half-ton bins worth of grapes. And the guy told me it would take them from 8 a.m. until about 5 p.m. to pick these 2 bins. Professional picking crew will generally pick that in an hour or less, that much fruit. And I was kind of annoyed, why would you take so freaking long? So I drove up there early to help, to hurry things along. I'm like, what's going on? What is this guy doing? And there was literally a team of about 10 or 15 senior citizens sitting, him and his friends were sitting there, and they had buckets, and they were sitting by the vines, and they would clip a cluster off, take it in their hands, and sort through that cluster berry by berry, looking at it, pull one berry off, throw it to the side, turn the cluster, pull another couple berries off, look at it for a while, hold it up to the sun, all right, that's perfect, and lay it gently in their tray. When that was full, they carried it to the bin and gently laid it in. It was the most ridiculously meticulous grape picking I've ever seen, with the perfect grape clusters coming out of it.
Well, it's a good example that your product and your processes produce the results, because when we do a lot of our tastings, we don't tell people beforehand what the prices are. We might have a price list, but you're not always looking at it. A lot of people pick this out as like their favorite or one of their favorites, and I guess that's why.
So, other than being really cool, really small production grapes, I fermented this on about 25% whole cluster, which is a technique where you leave the grapes on the cluster. That I laid in the bottom of the bin with crushed grapes on top of it. And that whole cluster influence gives a little bit of like stemminess and dryness to the wine that you don't get in all of my wines. So like some of my lighter reds are more just about the berries. But this, by having a little stem influence, I think it enhances the like tea leaf, a drying kind of a little bit of spiciness as well influence. Because otherwise, I think Pinot Noir, too many Pinot Noirs these days, like Meiomi, are all fruit. And there's nothing wrong with Meiomi. It's a delicious wine, and it appeals to a lot of people. But it is all about fruit flavors and sweet and oak and vanilla. This wine is more about these herbaceous, earthy, spicy flavors. I wanted to enhance that more and make this a little bit more of a dry, earthy wine, more in the old school French style of Pinot Noir, not in the fruit-forward California style.
It always reminds me of, and you talked about this with the herbaceousness and the spice and, some of the other notes there, but it reminds me of, tomatoes. They have that luscious smell. They've got but when you have the tomatoes and they're still on the stem and you have those leaves and it has that green smell with it as well, and just the whole thing combined has that like fruity, sweet, but also like herbaceous, umami, like natural, and that really kind of, and not that this necessarily has, tomato specifically flavors, but that's what that makes me think of, almost like, analogically or like metaphorically, like it has that where it's got the berry, the tomato, and all that fruitiness, and then you've got that really aromatic, stems going along with it.
And I think that's something I like to enhance in a Pinot, because a classic descriptor of Pinot Noir in the old world and old school winemaking was tomato leaf.
This glass is not good for swirling. Every time I do that, it just jumps off the side.
That's one thing I've
learned. I'm going back to the mason jar.
These cool little quirky glasses aren't necessarily good for swirling. And that's
it's got too much legs for that, I think.
Yeah.
Did I do that right? I don't.
No. So I think actually, it's a good point. On a side note, kind of, sort of a side note. One of the people say, why are wine glasses all fancy shaped? Why do you drink out of that kind of wine glass? Why do you swirl? It's sometimes over the top, but there is a reason.
It's to separate the people who know and those who don't, so we can snigger behind their backs.
That's it. Yeah. So moving on. The other reason is that having like a bowl shape creates like there's a wide edge, and then there's a narrow part, and the wide edge, the wine can kind of swirl there. And by being able to move it around there, you can actually like swirl the wine or move it around without it spilling. So it's a practical thing. But the reason why you're swirling it is to agitate the wine to release aromatics so you can smell them better. Create a little like whirlpool with the wine to release that smell and get the aromatics like whirling, and then you got like shoot them up into your nose almost. You don't actually want the liquid in your nose, but the smell.
But you want to get your nose like fully in the glass and just be like. That's how they do it.
Yes, very good.
That does seem to be the way they do it, though, right? Like, I'm not an expert on that, but it's like people really get their nose in there, like inside the glass.
Winemakers do it so much so that you periodically see a winemaker, when being real serious and like deeply swirling and sniffing and stuff. Every once in a while, one will like literally like accidentally throw wine into their nose or like dip their nose in enough that it gets purple, and they're like walking around with purple on their nose. That's how you know a true winemaker.
I just end up with those like Joker cheeks where I've got the line right there from my deep gulps. Why so serious?
So, my literary pairing with this is from Henry David Thoreau. And the quote is, "You must live in the present. Launch yourself on every wave. Find your eternity in each moment. Fools stand on their island of opportunities and look toward another land. There is no other land. There is no other life but this." It's both uplifting and sad. Can't figure out whether it's inspiring or depressing, right?
This ain't no practice life.
Yeah. It's just fact. So make the most of it. Launch yourself into the waves, but like in a good way. Cool. All right. Then the music pairing for this, on a little bit more upbeat note, is by Fleetwood Mac, "The Chain," because I think this wine is really classic wine. It has sort of classic Pinot Noir characteristics, and so for me, "The Chain" by Fleetwood Mac is just one of my favorite classic rock songs. Freaking love Fleetwood Mac.
I don't know if I know that song. I'll have to check it out later.
That's good.
I might, and it's just I don't recognize it as the name. Or
Yeah,
well,
you definitely do, but yeah, it's just the name. So, and food pairings for this, my mind goes to lamb and Moroccan spices because there is so much spice here. You could certainly do a tomato-based dish because that tomato influence. Any other thoughts, Jerome?
I would say, and I'm a huge foodie. I'm all about that. Normally I have like a long list and some crazy stuff. I wouldn't really pair this one with food. Maybe it's the price or like the complexity of it, but this is one that I would just kind of enjoy. I could see it going with, lamb or duck or something gamey or something with some herbaceousness, a pesto or whatever. But I wouldn't do that. I would just enjoy this one and savor it. Like you got a really good whiskey. You don't make it into some ridiculous mixed drink. You make a mixed drink with some cheap vodka. I would just enjoy this one and sip it.
Yeah, I can understand that just because, especially when you're paying $68 for a bottle of wine, you don't want to just be like quaffing it with your food. You want to be sitting there and sipping it. And this does have so much going on with it that I think you can really like sit there and savor it. And like, it's a kind of a thinking wine, Some wines are just good for enjoying, like the LA Wanderlust. That's just like, you can think about that wine, but you can also just like enjoy that. And it's smooth and complex, but easy to drink. This one definitely you want to like think on a bit more. Also, I hadn't been looking at the YouTube channel, but we got a lot of comments there today. Some bingos from Sandra Huelman and Zosia Stafford, and all right, and so Kurt Molikin also got bingo. If you count Jerome wearing his mask, just kind of wearing it, he's like wearing it on his body.
Yeah, but if you count me having one of these around my neck, it's basically a 24/7 thing these days. I have a waterproof one I shower with in case somebody else used that water before. Like, safety first kind of guy. Yeah, but yeah, there was another one that I didn't quite pull up because I was like, ooh, I wasn't expecting to have reached so the end already. Yeah. Like, I swear that doesn't normally happen to me.
And then we got Joshua Greenwood and Zosia Stafford got a second bingo on her same card. Her mom, Deidre Cromley, also got one.
So, yeah, we'll figure out some way to do that without, like, bankrupting us and make sure everybody gets something. We'll give out 99-cent tastings for everybody that got one beyond the first few winners.
Yeah, we'll definitely give all of you guys something, and glad to take care of everyone. It's fine. I'm drunk now, so I'll just give you guys all the prizes. It's all good.
Yeah, at the beginning, he was like, one number 5, and he's like, it's on me, everybody! I love you guys!
I love all you guys. You guys are the greatest.
You are, though. It's true.
They are. They're really the best.
Yeah, when we don't have an audience here, we get, like, a little more rapport between the two of us, but we also, like, tend to get a lot more drunk.
All right. Now, I'm getting ahead of you guys. I just poured myself my favorite wine in this lineup, personally. The L6 Epiphany Petite Syrah. And this is...
You already poured yours?
Yeah, I got one. So I put this one in my Belgian beer glass.
Ooh. I immediately get like caramel, like vanilla, like some almost like not warming spices, but like baking spices that aren't warming spices, like I want to say like like I said, they're like vanilla, like brown sugar, caramel.
Oh, I see.
Like,
yeah, I totally see vanilla and brown sugar are like really strong in this on the nose.
I haven't even tasted it yet, but immediately smelling it, and right after that Pinot, like, woo, very different.
And it's a heck of a jump too, because that Pinot is a low alcohol red wine. It's like 12 something, and the Petite Syrah is like 16% alcohol. This is much, much riper grapes. These grapes were picked in the high 20 something, like 26, 27% sugar, which translates to about 16% alcohol after fermentation. So these grapes were like almost raisiny when we picked them, which gives it like jammy dark fruit flavor, but also it fools the nose, even though the wine's not sweet. It fools the nose into thinking the wine is sweet. You smell these sweet things like brown sugar or ripe blackberry and plum and raisins or something.
I got a question. How is the alcohol percentage determined? The way you sort of described it there, it almost implied that you actually test it when it's still a sugar level and then just assume based on the math what the resultant alcohol content is. Is that the reality?
So basically, when you have any sugar source, so this is true more or less in beer, wine, hard apple cider, any fermented alcoholic product.
Baking as well.
Well, okay, so it's a little different. So I'll start with those ones first.
All right, go ahead.
So basically, the yeast which ferment sugary sources.
Right.
Generally, if you were to put a pure microbial thing, if you were to take a bag of yeast, of wine yeast, and put that in grape juice, it's for every 1% sugar, you get 0.58% alcohol. So it's just that computer. So it's like you can do the math. It's like a little complicated. It's 0.58, but it's a little more than half basically. Yeah. So if you have 26% sugar, you're going to get like 14% alcohol, 14.5% alcohol. If you have 28% sugar, you're going to get like 15, 16%. So you can more or less do a straight line equation like that. Now, most mainstream wines...
But isn't there also a variability on that? Like anything done method champenois or even something close to that, like your rosé or whatever, is going to not have had the full effects take place, and therefore is going to not have achieved that 0.58, right?
Any wine that has, as long as all the sugar is gone, and all of my wines have all the sugar gone, so all the sugar has been fermented out, that sugar base has turned into that alcohol, and that's that. You have the alcohol that directly results from the sugar.
So what's causing the bubbles? Are the yeast on afterburner?
So in that case, in the case of the bubbling effect, so like let's take a sparkling wine.
Yeah. You
ferment the initial wine, which you usually pick at a fairly low sugar level, like say 20% sugar. And then straight line equation, you're going to get 10.6% alcohol. I might have done that wrong. 11.6% alcohol.
Yeah.
Then from that 11.6% alcohol, you have a wine that's no sugar and has that amount of alcohol. So it's a light white wine. You take that wine, you add another like 1% or 2% sugar to it, usually literally like cane sugar. They make a simple syrup solution and they add it to the tank of wine, and then they bottle that in champagne bottles and send it through a secondary fermentation.
So my random guess throughout where I said it's almost like it's on afterburner. Afterburner doesn't mean it's like burning its fumes. Normally afterburner is like you've got some secondary compartment where like your main takeoff fuel and then it hits so it actually very much is like that. It burns through the initial sugar and does that alcohol, and then they just add a little more at the end to do that second,
Yeah, and it's not to get more alcohol. In the case of sparkling wine, it's specifically so that fermentation will kick off again in the enclosed container.
And create these bubbles from the waste product in the same process.
The main chemical equation, if they write it out, like in wine school, I don't remember all the C2H6, whatever, but it's basically sugar equal by yeast is turned into alcohol plus CO2. So
that's like a magical equation right there. You're like sugar and then yeast, and then let me put this arrow here and I get bubbles and liquor. I like that.
It's the best chemical equation in the world.
I'm down with that.
So now that's okay. So that was, we kind of got off on like four levels of tangent there. The core idea there is the sugar level creates the alcohol level in a relatively direct process. And this wine was picked very ripe at high sugar levels, resulting in a relatively high final alcohol. So I get from that some alcoholic smell. It's not over the top, but to me it contributes like a perception of spiciness on the nose and on the palate.
I can see that.
Especially going from the Pinot Noir, which was like dry and acidic, but not alcoholic. You didn't have an alcoholic bite. Here you have like some acidity, but not too much. You have like solid tannins, but kind of a richness and almost sweetness. And then you also have this alcoholic kick. So it's a very different finish on this wine.
Yeah. I can see that. And I mentioned from the aroma, I got the more like brown sugar, caramel, vanilla type of notes. In tasting it, I do get some of those more warming spices,
Mhm.
cinnamon, clove type of notes almost, or even like ranging into like black or white pepper almost.
And I think
Very
because,
different from the Pinot in that way, yeah.
and we talk about this during every episode a little bit. I mentioned the lemon wood earlier. The Pinot Noir was aged on oak and cherry wood. This wine was aged on oak and maple and hickory. So I do think you get some of that influence on that wine. When you really start to think about it, it's like, oh yeah, maple, almost molasses.
Yeah, well, so when I was saying all those things, the one I didn't touch on is maple syrup. That might be the best descriptor of what I'm getting there on the nose.
So yeah, I think it really comes through on this wine, and it's delicious. So
yeah, good point. I don't think that counts as Jerome talks about wood. That was a Kevin, so no points on that.
There's already so many bingos. Yeah, okay.
I missed all the Kevin quotes though. Normally he says all that good stuff, or oh gosh, at least once per show.
Oh gosh,
but
so okay. You guys can all thank Karen C for asking me if I can give a discount code for the wines for everyone watching this tasting. Well, she just said, "Are you doing a discount code for this tasting?" And you know what? Since I am 5 wines in here and I'm feeling friendly, and there's been some good compliments on this wine, you guys can all on the website use the code organic. That's going to give you 20%, I think, off on the website for any order. So you can order that Petite Straw, the V2 Pigpool, some of these things that are almost sold out. 20% off. Thank you guys for supporting and getting these kits and watching. So
yeah, apparently Kevin would be an easy last call pickup.
Yeah.
Pro tip, ladies. No, I'm not. I don't do. That's not what I meant to imply. But I mean, if you're interested,
Drums
this
like
guy.
My hype man. Idiot. All right. So my life pairing for this is mushroom hunting in a temperate rainforest, perhaps in Oregon or Washington.
So next time you guys are doing that, grab a bottle.
And then the music pairing, I think this is a really thoughtful song, and it is called Epiphany. So my food pairing is Do You Realize by the Flaming Lips. If you guys have ever listened to that song, it's his deep epiphany about how, yeah, I'll let you listen to the song. Do You Realize, Flaming Lips. And all right, I have a bit of a long literary pairing here. It's not too long, but if you really don't like my literary pairings, this would be like a good time to take a quick bathroom break. But all right, my literary pairing for this is from the Dalai Lama, from the Book of Joy. Actually, it's him and Reverend Desmond Tutu being interviewed. Really great book, actually. So the quote is, "Adversity, illness, and death are real and inevitable. We choose whether to add to these unavoidable facts of life with the suffering that we create in our own minds and hearts. The chosen suffering. The more we make a different choice to heal our own suffering, the more we can turn to others and help to address their suffering with the laughter-filled, tear-stained eyes of the heart. And the more we turn away from our self-regard to wipe the tears from the eyes of another, the more, incredibly, we are able to heal, and to transcend our own suffering. This is the true secret to joy."
Wow, your lucid wine quotes are like woke as fuck.
I'm feeling woke today. What can I say? And I was in a mood today, so I looked up some really cool quotes that were hitting my heart in the moment. So my food pairings for this are mushrooms, grilled meat or veggies, just anything with like some cool grill marks, roasted Brussels sprouts. But those, in retrospect, there's got to be something better. I think you might have some other ideas.
I agree with a lot of those. And okay, so here's your Jerome talks about wood moment. You talk about how this was done on maple and cherry as well as the oak. That's something you don't find near the coastline. You don't find up in the mountains. You don't find in cold climates.
Mm-hmm.
That's done in moderate climates. That grows along rivers. That grows places where there's a lot of mushrooms, where there's fowl and game. Mm-hmm. And so I do think a lot of what you were saying there, I think this would be great with anything that, is more natural, not your store-bought beef or pork or chicken, but this would be great with a turkey or duck or lamb. Or I really do think the best pairing for this is mushrooms. or boar or bison. This is something for. That's a little more plains than forest, but it's got that gaminess. I view this as something
Totally a
like
game meets
to
wine.
pair with what you would find in the deep woods along the river. You don't necessarily need to enjoy it there. There are plenty of life experiences beyond stuff that are
Other
beyond
than
us.
mushroom hunting.
But in that kind of thing, a hike in the redwoods, or when you're digging trenches in the dirt and you just have that earthy smell, or grilling mushrooms. Like, this is just so much umami and such a perfect
This is
shade growth wine.
definitely an umami wine. So, all right. That more or less is finishing up our tasting here, and I saw that Tara got a bingo right towards the end there. So awesome, Tara! I'm glad you snuck in right against the finish line.
I'm checking all your boards.
Right?
No, I'm just kidding. That's way too much extra work. You all get prices.
So also, we're gonna kind of finish up the show by just we're gonna show you guys our tasting kits. Most of you guys watching have the tasting kits. But just in case some of you guys are watching along, you can see what the kits are and our monthly subscription boxes we're going to show you guys.
You want to move the things and I'll talk so I don't accidentally press all the buttons?
Yeah.
That's one of my worst qualities, apparently.
And one of the things that we have coming up is we are actually taking this next week off of doing our virtual tasting. So there will be no 4th of July weekend tasting.
It's our first weekend off in over 3 months since we first started doing these. So it's going to be a nice little weekend for the two of us. So what you have here is a couple things. And are they both up on screen? Yep. These are some of the gifts that go along with our subscription packages. We got 1, 2, and 3 bottle, voluptuary or lucid or mixed. You get your bottles at a discount for, monthly for whatever package you get. Plus, you get free shipping or delivery. Plus, you get a gift from a local artist, always organic, generally wine-themed as well. So you got like mason jars, fancy candles, bottle lights, this cool little spiral bamboo in a glittery bottle, resin necklaces, and all sorts of other stuff. The list continues to grow, obviously. You've also got over here the other kits that we do, which instead of a monthly subscription, this is our weekly tasting like you're doing now. So we've got 4 options, and we're always changing it up a little bit, either for packaging reasons or to give you, more options or more with your options. But right now there's 4. Your 25 milliliter kits, which is an ounce each. It's basically, a glass altogether. You've got your 100 milliliter kits, which it's about a glass each, 2/3 of a bottle altogether. So that's a pretty full, amount of wine for one person. Your next tier up is a kit for 2 of this kit below, and then 1 full bottle. And then the top option is 5 bottles of each. It's your best price per, amount that you're getting. So if you've got the money, if you want to support, if you're going to drink it long term anyway, that's best for you and best for us. But we want to make it accessible to everybody down the line. So that's something, if you're interested in, give it a try, spread it around. It seems like quite a few of you tonight are going to get, some of these for all the bingos we've been handing out. But just wanted to show, because this is how we pivoted and survived and thrived when it seemed like the world was going to, collapse around us. And a big part of that is you guys. So if you want to keep being part of this experience, we'd love to have you. And I think Kevin's coming in here to do a little sign off.
Yeah. So I think he kind of already touched on this, but we are taking a break here next weekend, 4th of July weekend. No tasting kit and no virtual tasting, but we're starting back up again the week after on Thursday, July 9th. And it's on our website, and we are actually going to, throughout July, do some day of the week switch up. So we're going to do it on Thursday, then Friday, then Sunday, and finishing on Saturday. And we're basically asking you guys to vote with your, purchases. So join us for those tastings on the days that make sense for you. And it's going to be similar themes. It's going to be a lot of food pairing and live music throughout July. And, basically figure out which days and times work for folks. So that'll be fun. Join us for those. And the other big change now, if you guys haven't already noticed, if you're getting the kits now, we are now in really secure screw top style bottles. These have, much more impeccable quality. We're not having any leakage issues. The cork wasn't perfect during certain kinds of shipping. And we're also, with these kits, going to be doubling the size on our entry level tasting kit. They're going to go from 1 ounce or about 25 mils to 2 ounces or about 30 mils. I'm sorry, about 50 mils. I'm not very good at math at this point in the night. So much bigger entry level taster.
I'm his infomercial side guy, so I'm gonna be crossing out the
not 25, 50 mils. So you guys can check that on the website. We have the new size listed there. So much better tasting amount. You can just a little more to swirl and get those 3 or 4 sips in. So same options basically though. I'm going to be continuing doing these virtual tastings for as long as you guys keep joining us. So thanks again, and signing off. We'll see you guys again next time.